Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge. Welcome to Season 4, my friends, of the Pilates Lounge Podcast. This is a space for movement lovers, Pilates educators, and Pilates professionals who want to think a little bit deeper about the work we do. My name's Katie Crane. I've been teaching Pilates for over 20 years, and along the way, I've worn many hats: studio owner, teacher trainer, mentor, and lifelong student of the work we do. I'm also a surfer, an adventurer, a mum, a busy wife, and someone who believes that movement is by far more than exercise. On this podcast, we talk about Pilates as a practice, not just what we do on the mat or on the equipment, but how Pilates shapes the way we move, teach, lead, and live our lives. We explore anatomy, health, business, culture, and the evolving identity of Pilates in the modern world. This is a place for honest conversations, lived experience, and perspectives that respect both the lineage of Pilates and the people practicing it today. So thank you so much for being here. Let's dive into the episode. Hi everyone, my name's Katie Crane. Welcome to another episode of the Pilates Lounge Podcast. Now, you guys all know by now that we're doing a series on the topic of fibromyalgia. So far, we've spoken to health professionals, people living with fibro, and Pilates instructors working with fibro as well. So today, I'm thrilled to invite Kristin Windsor onto the show. She has healed herself from fibromyalgia. I think that this is going to be an absolutely brilliant conversation for our listeners. Welcome to the show, Kristin. I'm just going to hand the microphone straight over to you, and I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and such a powerful topic to cover, something that's not discussed nearly enough, and to bring awareness to it, to bring hope for healing, to bring deeper insight is all very powerful. So hello, I'm Kristin Windsor, and my healing journey started from a young age, not specifically with fibro just yet. That comes a little later in the plot line, but from a young age, started struggling with really severe mental health battles. Insomnia, psychosis, bipolar, PTSD type symptoms, even though there was not known trauma at the time. And fast forward 10 years later, I was 24 years old and had been diagnosed with every mental health thing in the book, had seen over 100 doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, all kinds of different people to try and heal this chaos that was taking over my life and causing me to become more and more disabled and less capacity to function in daily life. And after working with over 100 doctors, tried everything in the book: DBT, CBT, EMDR, IFS, all the traditional approaches for healing mental health and trauma recovery, I found myself completely disabled. Nothing was working. And it was at that time that there was relational trauma that led to traumatic brain injuries. And it was at that point that fibromyalgia developed. Chronic pain had started at age 14 in direct alignment with the mental health battles. So it had been quietly building beneath the surface for 10 years, but it was the traumatic brain injuries from repeated head traumas over many months that really began the journey specifically with fibromyalgia. And so at that time, I had such a distrust of doctors because I'd seen over 100 and had left me with nothing in my life, no hope for healing, had given everything to these treatments. And so when things got worse, I wasn't really interested in seeking assistance from doctors. I was very set on how can I heal myself? And that's exactly what I did. And so long story short, I was able to study the neuroscience of every health battle. There was over 100 debilitating health conditions that had developed from 20 years of complex trauma, fibromyalgia being just one of those 100 battles. And I was able to understand more of the neuroscience of why these battles were happening, and then start to create simple, accessible daily practices that let me heal that root cause. And by sticking with those daily rituals and developing and improving them with more and more understanding of the neuroscience of the struggle, I was able to create complete healing from all 100 disabling health conditions, including fibromyalgia, in just 3 years, which is a miracle if I've ever heard of of one. And so now I've developed this self-healing miracle method, and it's what I teach my one-on-one clients, and it's what my new book is about. That's in the process of being written right now.
Wow, that's a big introduction. All right. So can we backtrack a long, long way if you're up
Yes,
for it?
absolutely. Wherever you want to kind of plug in and say, let's go more here in this spot of the timeline. I'm happy to go wherever you feel is best focused.
Okay. Well, possibly right back to the beginning where you said that, well, so you said that you had over 100 conditions or diagnoses. Could you go back to the very start, I suppose? I mean, what was life like for you as a child? Could you touch on that?
I mean, it was good from the outside surface. And then between ages 12 and 14 was when the health battle started to develop. And it was because of suppressed sexual abuse from age 4 that I didn't find out about until later with some of my healing work. And so there was this very, very gnarly trauma that happened at just 4 years old. But because it's such a young age and such a severe trauma, it was not processed as an autobiographical experience, but it was just stored in the body as raw sensations. And then the brain and the body kept developing, but it developed around a fragmented self and a dysregulated nervous system. And so then other things developed to cope with the trauma memories in the body that started to resurface. Because once you go through that puberty stage, there's a lot of changes in your hormones. And those changes in the hormones is what actually triggered the suppressed body memories from the childhood sexual abuse to resurface. And then stuff was developing on top of it to cope. And that's where the insomnia came in, the anxiety developed, the psychosis was like a very unique form of dissociation where things just weren't making sense because of all the fragmented body memories that were trying to navigate life, and chronic nervous system dysregulation, which was a huge component of the chronic pain that started at age 14. And then it just kind of spiraled from there.
And so how old were you when you realized that sexual trauma was part of your experience?
I started to learn about that when I was about 24 or 25 years old.
And you say that you realized it, or it started to become a part of your awareness through your healing process. What practices were you involved in at that time, and what did that unveiling look like?
Yeah, absolutely. The core practice that let me piece together the suppressed memories was a form of self-hypnosis. I taught myself starting off just with YouTube videos of self-hypnosis. And then I kind of picked up on the clues of like, these are kind of the components that go into self-hypnosis. And then I developed my own protocol to go in and kind of guide myself through that process. And so for many years in the thick of my self-healing, because things were finally being brought to the surface, partially because they just couldn't be hidden anymore. They'd been, kind of bubbling up for so many years. They were like, they at the surface, they're not gonna go away. But also because I was finally creating space to listen to my body and say, hey, I want to know what you have to tell me that I have been too afraid to listen to, or I haven't had the tools to learn how to listen to it yet. And during that process, every time I ate food, my body would go into the parasympathetic rest digest state. But that is also correlated with the dorsal vagal nerve, referencing the polyvagal theory. And that, for my body, was coupled with the fold stress response from the trauma at age 4. And so when I ate, my body's like, oh, it can finally relax. But instead of being in the rest and digest regulated state, it went into a full dorsal vagal collapse. So I knew, like clockwork, every time I ate for the following 2 hours, as soon as I was finished eating, my body would be reliving that childhood sexual abuse. I didn't know it was that at the time. I just knew there was some kind of trauma. So I made a daily practice of, okay, I'm going to eat my food, create a very safe space for me. And as soon as I'm done, I know my body's going to go into this very scary shut down state. And it's during that time that the trauma memories will be most accessible. And so I would go through a 2-hour self-hypnosis practice at least once a day, but sometimes more than once a day. And I would create space for my body to tell me the things that it hadn't been able to tell me before.
Mm. Can you explain to our listeners, like we've touched on polyvagal theory on the podcast, so a lot of our listeners understand, and we've also done vagal nerve episodes. If you guys haven't listened to them, then you could go back and listen to them. But for our listeners, from your experience, what does that fold response look like? What happens?
Yeah. So with the polyvagal theory, there's these different states of activity. There's 5 states of activity. There's the ventral vagal state, which is you're socially engaged, like us right now. We're talking, we're hanging out. It's the social engagement space where you're doing life. And then the lower energy is the dorsal vagal and the ventral vagal combined, where you're like physically intimate. You're very relaxed, but in a safety kind of way. You might be cuddling with a partner. And then the higher energy regulation is where the sympathetic chain and the ventral vagal are active together. And that's where you get like competitiveness in sports. But if the ventral vagal shuts down, the sympathetic chain alone is what causes that fight, flight, and sometimes freeze stress response. It's the high energy stress response. The dorsal vagal alone, without the ventral vagal to regulate it, is the shutdown state. And it's the same state that a possum goes into when it plays dead. When a possum plays dead, the breathing rate slows. It's in a complete minimizing energy state. And so the fold stress response is especially tied to early life trauma, because if you're a very young child, you can't fight off an attacker. You can't run away. Your legs aren't long enough. You're not fast enough. You're not strong enough. So the fold collapse is the only survival space. So if there's early life trauma, especially physical or sexual abuse, the fold stress response will most likely be tied to that. And it's your heart rate goes really slow. Your muscles are completely loose. You can't engage your muscles. They're totally flaccid. So it results in weakness, fatigue, and that was a contributor of fibromyalgia, was chronically being in the high energy dysregulation where all of your muscles are tense, which can create pain, and then the fold stress response where all your muscles are loose and you can hardly get out of bed because you can't physically engage your muscles. And so the fold can also, in very severe states, result in oxygen deprivation because you're literally in a shutdown. And that was part of something I discovered in my case study that I led myself through. Was oxygen deprivation was part of what was contributing to my health battles. And I actually got an at-home oxygen machine and applied it a very specific dose, a very specific amount every so often, but every 90 minutes every day for about 3 years. And that was also part of the healing.
Oh, wow. And do you mean like with an oxygen machine, like literally like with a tank and oxygen, or like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber?
It was, the machine was about this big, and a tube connects from the machine that is 100% oxygen, and you connect it with tubes in my nose, and then I would do a certain amount, about 15 to 30 minutes every 60 to 90 minutes was the dosage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And so as far as that traumatic event when you were about 4 years old, was it that one event that led to all of these going on in your body, or was that just one event, not just one, or was that one event that you uncovered and then you realized that that was one of other traumatic experiences? How does that look?
I had many other traumatic events later in life that I was already fully aware of, which had developed adulthood PTSD. But it was the events from that time at age 4 that had started all of the issues. And then things compounded and led to the health battles. And then later there were other traumas, including sexual and physical assaults as an adult.
Mm-hmm. And so what makes you different in that not everybody ends up being able to heal themselves, right?
Yeah.
What makes you different?
I believe that anybody can heal themselves. There was a certain level of insane belief in myself was part of the driving force. It was just like, I know I can do impossible things. And really psyching myself into that belief on a daily basis and just creating daily routines that I stuck with no matter what. I mean, I had a routine and a ritual for when I first woke up, a routine and a ritual for mid-morning, a routine and a ritual for every time I ate, for midday, for the evening, for bedtime. And they were each about 2 hours of practices that included different meditation practices, nervous system regulating practices, self-love practices, just to build a new relationship with those parts of myself, a variety of things, but to create those practices and show up so consistently. It's very easy to say, well, I'm not feeling well, so I'm not going to show up. And it's like you have to show up through that, and that's how you're going to heal.
Mm. And what gives you the space to create that personality? Is that something that you is that your environment that gave you those skills to realize that you do have the power to do things? Or you know what I mean? Like a lot of people who live through trauma, PTSD, really struggle to ever come out of that. And if they do, then
Yeah.
they're only just surviving, only just living
Yeah.
life. But
Yeah,
here you
I'm
are.
honestly not sure. I'm honestly
Yeah.
not sure what miracle and magic planted that seed, but I've always had a deep desire to solve the mystery and understand things at their root. And so even in my first year of college, I was an English major signing up for 3 psychology classes. They're like, "Oh, you're a psych major." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm just curious. I just want to understand." I was always reading, personal development, self-help books kind of stuff. I my brain, my mind, my inner experiences were a mystery. And I was always from a young age set on solving the mystery. And then when it got to that rock bottom place of, being completely disabled from it, it was like, well, now my life literally depends on it. So I really don't have a choice. I mean, technically there is a choice to just give up. And I had tried that many times and it didn't work. And by that, I do mean suicide attempts. That was a chronic issue for 10 years, was trying to just leave. And when that failed, I was like, okay, I guess my only choice is to figure this out because I can't seem to escape it. And once I started to have breakthroughs, I think that really propelled it forward and gave it momentum, because a part of the big issue was feeling that these battles were just in my head and they were just like unfounded, and I just needed to have a space where they were validated, where yes, this is real, this is something you're going through, yes, this is a legitimate thing, and some hope that something could change. And I found that through the neuroscience piece. And as soon as I started to understand things about the nervous system, about the brain hemisphere integration, about the triune brain, about implicit memories and how they work and affect you, I was like, oh, there is an actual reason I'm experiencing this. Like, I'm not crazy, it's not all in my head. And once I found there was validity to it, then I was like, okay, but if I can find the root cause, then there must be a way to transform it. Like, if it's just, this abstract thing that is, you don't get it and you're just like, I'm trying to reduce the symptoms, it can feel very hopeless. But the second you're like, this is exactly why it's happening, and it's something that can be changed because of neuroplasticity and our capacity to rewire the brain and the body, that hope gave me a resilient courage that was so unbelievably fierce. I said, there is a way to heal this. And I am so angry that no one else knew about it that I'm going to use that anger as fuel to catapult me forward. And that really supported the process.
Mm. And what about the people around you, like family? So apart from that, the traumatic event when you were about 4 years old, you said you had a relatively normal childhood, went to school normally, went to college by the sounds of it, yeah?
Yes.
Mhm. And but you're about 14, was it? Were you about 14 when you said, like, when you really started to have chronic pain and stuff?
Yes.
And so that's tough for a 14-year-old, right?
Yeah.
From what does that look like?
It was very dismissed. It was very misunderstood. And, oh, that's just, teenage drama and things, but there wasn't awareness about it. There wasn't awareness about these topics, and there wasn't the tools to know how to respond. And so while everyone always was doing the best they could with where they were at, that was a huge, huge battle to feel like, hey, I'm going through this. And now not only am I going through these incredible battles and I don't know what to do about it, but all the trusted resources in my life are dismissing it. And so that was a huge struggle for sure.
Mm, mm. And so how old were you around about when you started to, because you sound like you know a lot about, you're obviously really passionate about things like, vagus nerve and understanding, being able to take control of things through your mind and changing your lived experience through changing the way that you think. At what stage did you start to explore that type of stuff?
It had always kind of been there, like, started to do, like, the journaling and introspective thing by between ages 12 and 14 when the symptoms had started, and kind of going on a quest for answers during high school, but didn't have the resources and the knowledge to really know how to go about that effectively. And then when college started, that's when I was doing more mental health research and incorporating that in my college studies, and then continuing, and I think it was around age 21, I was really involved in mental health advocacy and, going further and deeper into that world of psychology to understand these experiences. And then at age 24, I was like, I've exhausted all of the resources and I am completely dissatisfied with what I know. And that's when I discovered neuroscience in relation with the specific things I was trying to understand. And I was like, okay, there's a new route for this. And so it was about age 24, 25 that I really started teaching myself neuroscience and pouring through online courses and videos and books and articles. And I spent about like hundreds and thousands of hours, endless amounts of time in a case study that I basically did on myself. And I was like, I'm my greatest project. And it was understanding neuroscience in relation with every one of those 100 plus health battles I was going through to kind of draw new understandings about the human experience in general. And so the body, mind, soul treasure map is what I call it. It's part of my healing modality I've developed. It explores the 5 layers of the inner world, and that is the nervous system at the foundational base, and then the somatic layer of the inner world, which is body sensations, and then the emotional layer, and then the mental layer, and then there's our awareness. So there's a lot happening beneath our awareness. And by understanding what was happening in each of those layers, not just through the fluff of psychology and abstract ideas, but the specificity of neuroscience, that I was able to say, this is why this thing is happening and how I can heal it by rewiring that root cause.
Mm-hmm. And so somewhere within that time, how did the traumatic brain injury happen?
It was through a relational trauma. I'd rather not go into details, but
Sure.
my head was repeatedly bashed against doors and windows over many months, and that caused the traumatic brain injuries, which led to a long list of other health battles that continued to compound.
Right, right. But so one of those health conditions being fibro, but I would, from the sounds of it, a lot of, those experiences are quite interlacing, hey? Like, you potentially you've got chronic pain, depression, all the things that seem to go, along with these types of experiences. Did you seek help? I mean, I know that you said that you've got, not the healthiest trust in the medical system because you didn't receive the help that you need, which is not uncommon. But so, like, you've done so much self-exploration, kudos to you, to be able to come through the other side. Was there anywhere along the way, apart from all of this exploration that you've done on yourself and creating yourself as a case study and taking on subjects where you can actually understand how the brain works, and then being able to apply that understanding to the neuroscience of our nervous system. Along the way, what modalities did you find that did start to help with your healing? Like you said that you've practiced self-hypnosis. What else has helped? And that's a wrap, my friend. Now, before you go, make sure you check out the show notes. That's exactly where you'll find anything we're offering alongside this very episode and the link to subscribe to the Pilates Muse newsletter. Our subscribers receive free handouts and resources connected to the topics we explore right here. They're specifically created for Pilates professionals, movement educators, and Pilates lovers just like you. So, until the next episode.
Yeah, there was a few things I tried, but honestly, the things that ended up helping were methods I kind of developed on my own. So they don't necessarily have names for them, but a few things that generally helped in the early stages when I was still kind of figuring out how to create my healing path. One was parts work through internal family systems, just that capacity to ignite the front parts of the brain by being the observer and then kind of calm the other parts of the brain by giving language to the feelings that are going on and creating a new relationship between these different fragmented aspects of self, and just make those new connections by being the observer and rebuilding those, just the interconnections, the capacity for internal communication with the different parts of self. That was a significant piece of healing the trauma, which helped regulate the nervous system, which helped reduce the pain related with fibromyalgia. So there was kind of a domino effect, slightly indirect with that one, but it was part of the healing. Another piece was there's a lot of body movement practices, and that was something that I was continuing to, develop and expand. It started with what I called a stretch dance meditation because I was in too much pain to dance. I do remember lying in bed, looking on Instagram and seeing people dancing and just sharing their joy. And I just remember lying in bed, every inch of me hurting, switching between ice packs and heating pads just to cope, and, taking meds just to reduce the pain kind of stuff. And I was like, one day I am going to dance like that, and I am going to feel that free inside of my body. There's no way it's not happening. And so having that desire, and this is something that one of the first things I do when I work with new clients is creating that vision. The vision of what you want on the other side of healing. Because a lot of times we can get so caught up in what we're trying to heal, we kind of get stuck. And it's like, I'm trying to heal chronic pain, and all I feel is chronic pain, and all I identify with is chronic pain. And it's hard to even remember why you're trying to heal the chronic pain. You're healing it so you can feel freedom in your body and pleasure in your body and enjoy your physical activities and have the mental clarity to go after your goals. And when you remember the vision of what you're fighting for, it becomes a lot easier to show up for the healing work, especially when it's hard. So having that vision was, I would say, a key strategy in healing, because without it, I would have no reason to even try to get out of bed, quite frankly. And so the stretch dance meditation, because I was in too much pain to want to stretch or get up or do stuff or dance, it was a stretch dance meditation. And it was practicing presence with my body while I let my body move as much as she could, because that was very minimal at that time. Like the slightest movements would take a lot of work. And so to just put on music and close the eyes and let it be a meditative practice of presence. And then you start stretching like you're getting out of bed, and then you slowly let it evolve into a gentle dance. And it could be as slow and gentle as you need, because that's really important when there's chronic pain and that mind-body connection and self-awareness. And so from that, I started evolving a whole series of movement practices. And it could help regulate different stress responses in the nervous system. It could help reduce specific types of pain flares that were coming up. So that was a huge thing, because when we don't move our body, which can happen when there's chronic pain and it hurts to move, or there's depression that can come up, because chronic pain is very depressing, let's be real, and they often can go hand in hand. Who knows which came first? And if there's the fold stress response, then your whole body is in shutdown and you physically can't move. Like you try getting out of bed and you're going to be out of breath because your heart rate has slowed so much and your brain's not getting the oxygen it needs. So there's a lot of reasons it can be tough. But just having that first step of how can I move a little more today? Because when you end up being in bed a lot or sitting a lot or being in that stagnant space, the lymphatic system isn't able to move itself and pump out toxins in your body. And that alone can contribute to inflammation and chronic pain and brain fog and a lot of fibromyalgia symptoms. When there's not a lot of movement, the connective tissues get all crinkly and really upset and angry. And when that happens, it worsens the pain and the inflammation and all the stuff that's contributing to the symptoms. And so before we even try healing the pain, it's like, how can you just start moving again? Gentle, slow, one step at a time, very simple things. For a long time, had an alarm in my phone every hour to make sure I moved, even if it was for 20 seconds. But you don't want to stay, laying down or sitting down in any one position for too long. And even now, I try to be mindful of it. Even on the other side, it's like, okay, body, I hear you. You need to keep moving. And so those are some of the things that happen. Meditation, because that helps regulate the nervous system, which again can support the body's capacity for self-healing. Getting up, moving stuff, and yoga and Pilates were a part of my healing process as well.
Okay, cool. And can you look back on that whole process, and is there kind of like a timeline for you where you're like, I can feel that I'm getting better, or I can feel that I'm not suffering so much? Like, what does that timeline look like for you until
Yeah.
today, or until when you could confidently say, I'm okay?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first stage of my journey, it took more than a year of actually starting like consistent healing, kind of knowing a little bit what I was doing to even be able to start to feel my body again, because there was so much disconnection from all of the traumas. The mind and the body were very disconnected. Just the awareness of being present in the body was just not a skill set I had access to. There's a lot of dissociation. And so it took over a year, and I was in chiropractic treatment at that time, which did help. I wouldn't say it was like the thing that healed me, but it was one thing that supported the process. So finding the right kind of body work from someone who can work with the body in the way that it needs and work with you in the way that you mentally and emotionally need in the process, because there is a lot of trauma being released while working with the body, is can be very powerful. But it took over a year just to start to be able to feel what was happening in my body and not just have it be tingling and numbness and disconnection and dissociation. And then once that started happening, yay, progress. Oh no, I feel all the pain that was being blocked out. So it actually got worse. But the getting worse was a sign of progress for me personally. I know everyone's case is different, specifically because it was a sign that it was healing some of the dissociation that was disconnecting me from my own body. And then from that period, it was about, I'd say, another like year and a half or so before I started to have moments of enjoying being in my body. Like there were glimpses, there were glimpses, but they didn't last long. But a year and a half longer, so about 2.5, almost 3 years from the starting point, to say, wow, I'm actually grateful to be in my body. I'm grateful I can taste the food. I'm grateful I get to go for the walk and like actually enjoy it, not just survive the experience of it. And then from there, just another few months or so, and I would say I was confidently on the other side. It was about 3 years altogether from taking healing in my own hands to being on the other side, if you will, saying I no longer have this. It's no longer an issue. There were still like maybe 2 or 3 specific patterns in my body to be healed, but it was no longer a case of fibromyalgia. It was just a case of a couple things to heal, just chronic patterns of muscle tension that made certain pain things, compensation patterns because of misalignment, different things. So there was still about 3 more years of healing to get to the point of being completely pain-free, but it was in that middle sector of 3 years after starting and 3 years before it was completely over that I was like, I'm completely free of fibromyalgia.
Wow. And so what does life look like today for you?
Oh, it's so beautiful and delicious. I can't even. I get to enjoy life more than I ever believed possible. I'm an active rock climber, which is something that was never available to me. In early life, I had tried it, I think during college years kind of thing, early adulthood. And just because of the mind-body disconnect and the anxiety from the PTSD and just the nervous system dysregulation and just all of the things I physically and mentally could not do indoor rock climbing. And now it's my absolute favorite activity. I love to swim and hike and go for long walks with my new dog. Ice skating, rollerblading, bike rides. Like I'm more physically active than I've ever been. Weight training, all the stuff, yoga, Pilates, and I get to enjoy being in my body where every day gets to be a celebration that I'm alive and I'm here to enjoy it. A deep sense of peace and wholeness and inner freedom in both my mind and my body. My mind has greater clarity and concentration. I can sit down and get so much done when before it was like very hit or miss, like fingers crossed, I can function for maybe an hour. And even then it's going to be very challenging. And now that's, completely gone and I can sit and focus anytime for as long as I want or need and enjoy the process, not just pump out productivity, but actually enjoy the flow of my mind, which was something that felt very impossible for over 15 years. And yeah, pain-free in my body, able to listen to my body's cues, which was something not accessible. Like even right before this podcast, I'd gotten done with a very busy day of work and I felt my energy dip and I was like, oh no, like I need energy for this. And I was like, what does my body need? I'm hungry. I didn't even know I was hungry. Like my stomach didn't growl. There wasn't this obvious cue of hunger, but I've learned to listen to what my body is saying when before it was a total guessing game. It was like, there's 50 things it could need, and I have no idea how to know which one it is. It's just being able to listen to the wisdom of my body and know how to take care of myself. It seems like such a simple thing, but when you're coming out of trauma and chronic pain, like it's like learning a whole new language, and it takes practice and you get better and better, and then eventually you speak it fluently.
Wow, that's so cool. So is there whole experience, is it a memory or is it still present in that you are either concerned or you know that you might have a regression? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you have to be really mindful so that you don't have a regression, or are you just like, no,
Mhm.
that's just something that I experienced and now I'm good?
It's something that I experienced and now I'm good, but it took a long time to get there because of the there's forms of amnesia that had developed because of the traumatic brain injuries and with processing decades of trauma and just all the things. It took a long time to be able to process what I had experienced and what I had gone through, and not even just the 3 years of living with fibromyalgia, which was quite frankly a trauma of its own, but the decades of trauma preceding that. And so it took a lot of inner work, but thankfully the modalities I've developed are enjoyable and effective, and they never require me to revisit the past trauma to fully integrate it in my brain and my body. So I was able to do specifically a form of mirror practice, and just by connecting with myself in the present moment and creating a relational experience through a series of different practices I've developed, I was able to create this deep, deep integration in my brain and body where, things would come up in conversation. I was like, wow, I didn't even know it was that processed because I haven't been revisiting the past, but I've been doing these practices for embodied healing to really integrate all the networks, and it worked. Look at me go. So now I'm at a place where it's just a thing in my past. It feels like so long ago now that I get to live so fully and so freely, and I'm able to be aware of it without regressing or reliving any of that pain.
Mm. It's quite amazing, isn't it? That I completely, can relate to your whole experience. I also healed myself from chronic pain, having been told that there was
Mm.
nothing that I could do. So to some extent, I understand your whole process, but I also know from working with people who live with chronic pain, that is not the outcome for everybody. And in fact, many, many people seem to want to get in their own way rather than get to the point where you're at, right? Like you would
Yeah.
work with that
Yeah.
all the time, don't you? So what
Yes.
does it for your experience, what does it look like working with other people? Because that's partly what you do now, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So right now I teach people how to heal themselves basically. And it's anything from mental health or physical health or emotional health or relational health. Oftentimes it's healing from traumas, but we never revisit the past to create that healing. And lots of people who haven't necessarily been through a really big trauma who just want to improve their health in different ways, the quality of their thoughts and their emotions and things. And so in that process, the biggest thing is looking at the different parts of self. And so I have a deeper model that goes in more depth, but the introductory model looks at 3 types of parts. And this is where we uncover why people get in their own way and how we can start to create some positive shifts. There's the adult self, who is who you are right here, right now in this moment, and is very focused on functioning externally. So the adult self wants to heal chronic pains so you can go to work and have the relationships and accomplish your goals and do the things. And then there's the protector parts. And then there's the inner children. The inner children carry early life memories, really deep held body sensations and emotions, especially from early life, which can carry some trauma for people, but all throughout life as well. And the inner children hold the deepest emotional needs that we have, or relational needs, something I call attachment needs. And then the protector parts are in the middle between the inner children and the adult self. Like, I'm going to hide the inner children because the memories they carry are too intense for the adult to know about. If the adult knew about all that the inner child was carrying, the adult wouldn't be able to function. So as the protector part, I'm going to build this blockade, and I'm going to make sure the inner child stays far away from the adult so the adult can keep functioning and the inner child can, not have to deal with their stuff, basically. And so the protector part is the one that leads to a lot of the symptoms that we experience, not knowing that there's a distinction between these different parts of self. The protector parts can come in with self-sabotage because maybe the adult is like, wait, no, I do want to know. I do want to know what my inner child is carrying. I do want to know the root cause of this chronic issue. I do want to be able to heal it. I want to go deep. And the protector parts are like, you think you do, but you're not quite prepared for this. You don't know quite how much there is to heal. And I'm sorry, but I don't think you can do it. So I'm going to stay the protector of this system, and I'm going to make sure that you don't get in there. And then that's where you get someone like, well, I'm trying to heal, but I can't. And I'm trying to show up, but I just can't seem to bring myself to it. And I try to go deeper in myself, but there's just something blocking me and I just feel stuck. And so the protector parts are really carrying those chronically unhealthy patterns of navigating life, but for a very valid reason. And honoring their truth and that they are trying to protect you is the first step to building trust with them so that you can start to make some shifts. And then understanding that deeper within, kind of hiding behind any symptom or any block, is a part of the inner child carrying an unmet need to experience love. And how can you give that part of you love in the present moment? And that's a huge part of taking steps to get unstuck and make some positive shifts.
And so would you say then the protector part potentially is the pain that people feel because as part of that protection mechanism?
Yes, yes. Well said. Beautiful thought. Because basically there's all the trauma responses in the nervous system, like we talked about. And when there's the chronic sympathetic state where you're in that fight, flight, stress state, your legs are ready to run and your arms are ready to fight and all of your muscles are tense all of the time. And if your muscles are tense all of the time, that is a huge, massive contributor to chronic pain. If you can't tell your muscles to turn off, to chill out, to shut down, to relax, and this isn't something the mind can do. You can do relaxation practices. You can be fully relaxed on the couch, getting a face massage and watching your favorite TV show, and unconsciously, all of your muscles could still be tense. It's very deep unconscious in the body. But that is the protector parts with their trauma response is saying, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to run. I am ready to protect you. And it's all to protect the needs of the inner children and try to keep the adult self functioning.
Mm. And so what is that? What is the process of that happening? I mean, are you doing that through journaling, through meditation, through Like you do like your stretchy dance. Is that part of it?
So that's usually the sometimes things I can recommend that will always be supportive. It definitely never hurts to use those kinds of practices. But the journey that I lead my clients through and the journey I ended up leading myself through as well is working much deeper with those parts. And so instead of just journaling, for example, you might write a letter to that specific part of you. Dear protector part, thank you for trying to protect me. I'm so sorry that you've had to carry these things. Like, I see you in who you are, and you get to a space of deep, what's called self-attunement, where you are observing that part of you and then creating this relational bond and having a lot of respect and compassion for that part of you and building this conscious relationship like you would between two people, but it's between two parts of you. And rather than just gentle movement practices, which can be a good intro, the practices that I share and teach and continue to use in my own life as well is deeper practices to work with the body. And it's basically, to overly summarize it, because there's a lot of different practices, it's connecting mind and body in a way that you create a relational experience with yourself so that you feel love inside your body. So imagine you're looking at a loved one and they lock eyes with you. And just by their body language, just by their eye contact, just by the gentleness of their presence, you feel so seen and so loved. And immediately your whole body feels safe. And everything in you relaxes and you feel like you can breathe deeply and you just feel so held and taken care of. It's creating that experience somatically felt in the body, emotionally felt in the body, but a relationship that's happening inside of you between two different parts. And the most powerful way to do that is through mirror practices. And I do have a free 20-minute guided mirror practice I can share in the show notes so that your listeners can check that out. It's a great example of it. But it's really creating that felt sense of love in your body by meeting the relational needs that you have, but internally. It's you meeting your relational needs.
Can you explain what a mirror practice is for our listeners?
Absolutely. So I call them marathons. It's kind of like you're running a marathon, but instead you're standing in front of a mirror. It's a prolonged mirror practice. It's where you have a mirror. And ideally, for the practices that I teach, I do recommend a full body mirror. So you're really creating those associations with all parts of you. But you can use a small handheld mirror. You can use the bathroom mirror, like whatever works. And you're eye gazing with yourself. And as you eye gaze, you're really focused on the colored region of your eyes. Like, you're not studying the pimples on your face. You're not analyzing your hairline, right? Like, you're not just looking at the black part or the white part of your eye that's just kind of empty space. You're focusing on those galaxies being reflected in your eyes, the window of the soul. And in that moment, you're practicing distinction and connection between two parts of you. So you distinguish these parts by being the observer. So the self who is seeing from your eyes is like your awareness of self. And then you create this relational connection with the part of you who is being seen in the mirror. And so the practice is so much more powerful in mirrors because you can almost physically distinguish these two parts where there's you seeing and you being seen. And there's suddenly like two people or two represented parts of you having this relational experience. And that's very powerful for nervous system healing and healing any kind of trauma, especially something coming from relational trauma, is because the relational experience has a deep impact on the nervous system regulation. It is called the social engagement system, the neurobiological social engagement system. The cranial nerves, all the things that are part of the nervous system, according to the polyvagal theory, is for social communication. So if you are socially communicating in a mirror, you're taking all of the process about how your nervous system learned to regulate and the same process of what might have caused trauma, right? It was an interaction with a person and something not good happened, but you're going to build a healthy relationship with yourself, a new social experience where you get to meet your need to feel seen and loved and safe and secure and supported and respected and appreciated and valued. And to feel that in your body. So it's kind of the mirathons or the mirror practices that I teach.
Wow, that's so fascinating. So, I've got a question for you that I often ask a lot of our guests, because your journey is quite unique and fascinating and brilliant
Thank
and all the things. You're having the ultimate human experience while you're on this world.
you.
If you could have a conversation with your younger self when you were suffering, when you didn't see a way through. I mean, you've let us know that you attempted suicide. What would you have said to that younger self, being the person that you are today?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. It's kind of funny to think back because my younger self wouldn't have listened to me. She wouldn't have believed anything I had to say. But no, if she did, if she was in a space of being able to receive hope, because it took a long time to be able to receive hope again, I would just want to tell her that she has more power in every breath and every heartbeat than she could possibly fathom, because that was the deepest truth and what allowed so many miraculous healing moments. I would love to tell her that her journey is going to turn out to be a miracle story that she gets to share with people, that she gets to accomplish all her dreams, because back in the day she wanted to help people, she wanted to coach people, but she's like, I actually don't know how to help. I have some idea, but I can't really help myself, right? But there was always a desire for that. She always wanted to write a book, which is what I'm doing now. She always wanted to have her own business and be supporting people. She always wanted to travel and have good relationships and have physical activities she could enjoy, and, all the things that I get to experience now on the other side of healing. And I would love to tell her, and still tell her this actually regularly, you made it. Like, I know it's going to feel impossible. It's going to continue to feel impossible for a very long time. And I know you don't want to hear that, but you do make it to the other side. And the other side is so beautiful and so worth it. The living hell that felt like 10 lifetimes stuffed in one will be a blink of an eye, thing of a past, such a small speck in the story of the life that you get to create in the end.
Wow. That's pretty powerful, hey? It's almost like this is a thread that I'm hearing with people who live through these stories of trauma or chronic pain. It's almost if you get out the other side, it's like that whole experience has been the gift for the person that you get to become in the end.
Yes,
Chris
absolutely. Something I say on the journey is it's not just about, where you're trying to get or what you're doing, but about who you get to become in the process, because it really is an identity upgrade. When you've been through trauma, when you go through chronic pain, it becomes such a core of who you are. It's instinctive to respond from that space of, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can only do this with, these accommodations. That's just not something that's accessible to me. And it's a huge identity to shift to say, I have all the tools I need to heal myself right now. This moment is a powerful moment for healing. I am capable and powerful, and I have everything I need within me to succeed. And yes, it is a powerful mindset shift, but it's an identity shift when you feel it in your body and when your nervous system believes what your mindset has been trying to agree with.
Mm, mhm, yeah. Kristin Windsor, it's been a pleasure. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share your story with our listeners. I know that it's gonna be really well received, and yes, definitely, we'd love for you to share anything that our listeners might be able to experience the work that you do. I'm sure that anything that we learn from other people helps us serve our communities better, and that's really what the podcast is all about. So thank you so much for your
Yes.
time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'd love to invite your listeners to give me a follow on Instagram, shoot me a message, say hello, let me know what you thought of the podcast. I have that free 20-minute guided mirror practice you can grab. It's on my website. If you're ready to dive deeper, I have a self-guided course, which is a great first step. And then if you're ready for that deeper transformation, I offer 3 to 6 month mentorship spaces for one-on-one clients. There's 3 different packages available, so you can choose the level of support that feels perfect for your journey right now. And we go through this process of addressing each of those layers and creating those daily practices that you can fall in love with yourself a little more each day while resolving that root cause for lasting change. I would be so honored to support your journey in that deeper way.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, folks, as always, in the show notes will be Kristin's details, and make sure that you are subscribed to the Pilates Muse newsletter, because we will absolutely share all of Kristin's details in there as well. So she will be super easy for you to find. Thanks again. My name's Katie Crane from the Pilates Lounge Podcast. Hey friend, thanks so much for listening. Did you know that you can now find us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Pilates Professional? Now, if this episode resonates with you, please share it with someone else who would benefit from hearing it. Back to the show.